The first red flag should have been the way her phone was suddenly glued to her hand. But I ignored it. Sarah had always been the type to scroll aimlessly, checking out recipes she'd never cook, liking pictures of people she barely talked to. So when she started tilting her screen away from me, I told myself I was overthinking. Then came the late nights. First, it was working late, then grabbing drinks with Emily. And eventually, she stopped bothering with excuses altogether. I'd hear the garage door groan open at midnight, sometimes later. One night, I stayed up, waiting for her. She walked in, smelling like cheap cologne and hotel soap. When I asked, she had the nerve to laugh. "You're being paranoid, Matt." I was with the girls. The girls. A group chat I had seen with my own eyes. Half of them married, the other half single and wild, but none of them the type to stay out that late. And even if they were, why did she smell like another man? The final blow came on a Tuesday. A completely ordinary Tuesday. I had taken the day off to fix the garage door, which had been jamming lately. While moving things around, I found an old shoebox of hers tucked behind some paint cans. It was just a gut feeling, a whisper in the back of my mind telling me to open it. Inside were receipts, hotel stays, fancy dinners I had never been invited to, and a bracelet I had never seen her wear. And then, the worst part, a handwritten note. "Can't wait to see you again, baby. Last night was incredible." No name, just an initial. T. My hands trembled as I put the lid back on. I knew then that Sarah wasn't just pulling away. She was already gone. I stood there in the garage, gripping the shoebox like it had personally wronged me. My mind raced. Who the hell was T? How long had this been going on? Was she with him right now? I wanted answers, but more than that, I wanted proof. If I confronted her now, she'd just lie like she always did. I needed her to trip up, to give me something undeniable. So I waited. Sarah came home late again that night. I didn't say a word. I watched her from the couch as she kicked off her heels, swiped through her phone, then sauntered over to the fridge. She didn't even look at me. "How was work?" I asked casually, swirling the whiskey in my glass. She paused, just for a second. "Barely noticeable. Exhausting. Meetings all day." I smirked. "Must have been rough. You smell like whiskey and hotel soap." That got her attention. She stiffened, then turned slowly, her face a perfect mask of mild annoyance. "Jesus, Matt. Are we doing this again? What is your problem?" I took a slow sip, savoring the burn in my throat before setting the glass down. "You tell me." "Because I found something interesting today." Her eyes flickered. "Oh." I let the silence stretch, waiting for her to dig her own grave. She crossed her arms, shifting her weight. "Well," she pressed. I held up my phone, flipping to a picture I had taken of the note. The moment she saw it, her face did something strange. Her lips twitched, almost like she wanted to smirk, but she caught herself. "Matt," she sighed, shaking her head. "I have no idea what this is. Don't lie to me." My voice came out low, steady. "I found it in your things. With hotel receipts. With gifts that never made it home." She snorted, rolling her eyes. "Oh my God, you actually went through my stuff? That's so pathetic." "Yeah? Well, so is screwing someone else behind my back." Her expression turned sharp, defensive. "You're being ridiculous. T could be anyone. Tiffany from work. Tanya. Maybe it was from Emily's birthday dinner. I don't know." I stared at her. "Sarah, just tell me the truth." She let out a breathy laugh, then ran a hand through her hair, pacing slightly. "You seriously think I'm cheating? Because of a stupid note? You seriously expect me to believe you're not?" For a moment, just a fraction of a second, something flickered in her eyes. Not guilt. Not regret. Amusement. Like this whole thing was some joke to her. "You know what, Matt? Believe whatever you want," she said, snatching her purse off the counter. "I don't have time for this." And just like that, she walked out the door. Again, the door slammed behind her, rattling the frame. My jaw clenched so hard it ached, but I didn't move. Not yet. I just sat there, staring at the empty space where she'd stood, her perfume still lingering in the air. She didn't even deny it. Not really. She danced around the truth, tossed out weak excuses, and then ran, because she knew I wouldn't just let it go. Fine. If she wanted to play games, I'd play too. I grabbed my keys and left a minute after her. The street was empty except for her taillights vanishing into the distance. I had no idea where she was going, but I had one advantage. She wasn't careful. Sarah had gotten lazy with her lies. Maybe she thought I was too much of an idiot to catch on, or maybe she just didn't care if I found out. Either way, I had a plan. I started with her phone. She was careless, always leaving it face up, always swiping away notifications without thinking. And lucky for me, she had logged into her cloud on our shared laptop months ago and never logged out. I opened it. My hands were steady, my heart was not. Messages, call logs, location history, it was all there. And within minutes, so was he. Tyler. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Tyler Matthews. I knew him. I knew him. He was her coworker. I'd met him at a Christmas party 2 years ago. He shook my hand, looked me in the eye, and smiled like a decent human being. But now he was the guy sending my wife texts at 1 a.m., the guy who had been taking her to hotels while I sat at home like a fool. I scrolled through their messages, reading everything. Tyler, last night was unbelievable. I still feel you all over me. Sarah, shoo, you're going to get me in trouble. Tyler, wish you didn't have to go home. Sarah, me too. My vision blurred. My fingers gripped the edge of the laptop, knuckles white. This wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was a full-blown affair, months of sneaking around, of secret meetups, of laughing behind my back while I slept next to her at night. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She didn't even try to hide it properly. My chest felt tight, my breaths coming shallow. I had two options. I could sit here and drown in this, or I could do something. I chose the latter. I grabbed my phone, pulled up Tyler's contact from Sarah's messages, and stared at his number. Then, without hesitation, I hit dial. The phone rang twice before he picked up. Hey, babe. Silence. I let that word hang in the air, heavy, suffocating. Then, slowly, deliberately, I spoke. Wrong number, Tyler. A sharp inhale. A pause. Then a weak attempt at control. Who is this? You know exactly who this is. Another pause. Then, like the coward he was, he tried to play dumb. Look, man, I think you got the wrong. Shut up. My voice was calm. Too calm. I know everything. I read the messages. I saw the hotel receipts. I know exactly what you've been doing with my wife. And I swear to God, you better start talking before I make sure this conversation doesn't stay between us. His breathing picked up. I could hear it through the speaker. The panic. Dude, listen, he started, his voice shaking. It's not what you think. Then what is it, Tyler? Enlighten me. What part of you sneaking around with Sarah for months am I misunderstanding? No answer. Just silence. The kind that confirmed everything I already knew. I could picture him on the other end, scrambling for an excuse, maybe wiping sweat off his face. A man who had been so sure he'd never get caught. You're gonna stay the hell away from my wife, I said, my tone like ice. You're gonna block her number, stop answering her calls, and pretend like she doesn't exist. Because if you don't, if I so much as see your name pop up again, you're gonna regret ever meeting her. Man. Am I clear? Another pause. Then, finally, in a barely audible whisper. Yeah. I hung up. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I leaned back, exhaling slowly, my hands still gripping the phone. My heart pounded against my ribs, adrenaline buzzing through my veins. Tyler was handled. Now it was her turn. I checked Sarah's location. She was still at the hotel. Perfect. Without wasting another second, I grabbed my jacket and walked out the door. If she wanted to play this game, I was going to make sure she lost. The drive to the hotel was a blur. My fingers gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white, my mind playing out every possible scenario of how this would go down. I wasn't going to be one of those men who sat back and let this happen, who let himself be disrespected and made into a fool. Sarah thought she was untouchable, that I would just sit at home and swallow her lies. She was wrong. The hotel was in the next town over, far enough that she must have thought she was being clever. A place neither of us had ever been. A place she assumed would keep her little secret safe. But I knew. I knew now. I pulled into the parking lot and sat for a moment, scanning the cars. Hers wasn't here, smart. She must have gotten dropped off or taken an Uber to cover her tracks. But I wasn't here to admire her deception. I was here to end it. I stepped out of the car, my heartbeat hammering against my ribs as I walked through the glass doors. The lobby was dimly lit, with soft jazz playing over the speakers. The receptionist barely glanced at me, too preoccupied with whatever was on her screen. I strode past, straight toward the elevators. Floor 3, room 314. That was where her location had last pinged. As the elevator ascended, my hands curled into fists at my sides. My thoughts were a storm, Rage, disgust, betrayal. I had loved her. I had given her everything. And she threw it away for him. The doors slid open with a chime, and I stepped out into the hallway. It was eerily quiet, only the faint hum of the vending machine at the end of the corridor breaking the silence. My footsteps were slow, controlled, each one bringing me closer to the room that held the final piece of proof. I stopped in front of the door. For a moment, I just stood there, breathing. Then, without hesitation, I knocked. Silence. I knocked again, harder this time. A shuffling sound. Footsteps. Then the door cracked open just a sliver, and there she was. Sarah. Her hair was messy, her makeup slightly smudged. She wore a loose hotel robe, the belt lazily tied. And the moment she saw me, her entire expression shifted from mild annoyance to outright panic. Matt. I didn't let her finish. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room smelled like sweat, like cheap cologne, like them. My stomach twisted. I scanned the space quickly. Unmade bed, discarded clothes on the floor, an empty champagne bottle on the nightstand. And then I saw him. Tyler. He stood near the window, shirtless, his face drained of all color. If I had any doubt before, it was gone now. This wasn't some misunderstanding. This wasn't something she could talk her way out of. Sarah moved fast, stepping between us as if her body could shield him from the storm she knew was coming. Matt, what are you doing here? Her voice was too high, too forced, as if pretending this was my mistake, as if I was the one out of line. I didn't answer. I just looked at her. Really looked at her. This was the woman I had married. The woman I had trusted. And she didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. How long? My voice was low, steady, but there was something dangerous beneath it. Sarah crossed her arms. Defensive. Matt, don't do this. How long? A flicker of something in her eyes. Not guilt. Not regret. Annoyance. She sighed, rolling her eyes like I was the one causing a scene. Does it matter? I stared at her, my pulse pounding. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even trying to lie anymore. It matters to me. Tyler shifted uncomfortably, running a hand through his hair. Look, man, maybe we should. I cut him off with a sharp glare. Shut up. He did. Sarah groaned, exasperated, as if I was inconveniencing her. Jesus, Matt. Why are you making this such a big deal? We haven't been happy for a long time. I let out a short, humorless laugh. And instead of talking to me, instead of leaving like a decent person, you decided to do this? I gestured around the room, at the evidence of them. She shrugged. Shrugged. Like this was nothing. Like I was nothing. I mean, yeah. What did you expect? You've been boring for months. Always in your head. Always working on your stupid projects. Never paying attention to me. My jaw clenched. So it's my fault. If the shoe fits. There it was. The truth. She didn't love me. She probably hadn't for a long time. And worse, she thought this was funny. Tyler, still standing uselessly near the window, cleared his throat. Maybe I should. I turned to him, my voice calm, measured. Yeah, maybe you should. Before I do something I won't regret. He paled, grabbing his clothes off the floor and scrambling to get dressed. Sarah rolled her eyes, but didn't stop him. I watched as he hurried out of the room, avoiding my gaze the entire time. And then it was just us. Sarah sighed dramatically, as if I was ruining her night. Okay, now what? You want to yell at me? Cry? Give some big speech about how I betrayed you. She plopped down on the bed, crossing her legs. Go ahead, get it out of your system. I stared at her. Then I did something she didn't expect. I smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It wasn't sad, either. It was something else entirely. She frowned. What? I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You think you won, don't you? Her eyes narrowed slightly. What are you talking about? I leaned in, just enough for her to feel the weight of my next words. You'll see. And with that, I turned and walked out, leaving her sitting there, watching me go. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The night air hit me like a slap as I walked out of the hotel, but I barely felt it. My mind was razor sharp, my pulse steady. I had expected pain, maybe even hesitation, but instead, all I felt was clarity. Sarah had shown her true colors. Not just the betrayal, the complete lack of remorse. She didn't love me, didn't even respect me. She had thrown away everything we built together without a second thought. And now, she thought she'd just keep living her life like nothing happened. Not a chance. I slid into my car, gripping the steering wheel as a plan started forming in my mind. I wasn't going to be the idiot who let his cheating wife walk all over him. I wasn't going to be the guy who sat back while she laughed behind my back. She thought she was untouchable. She was about to find out just how wrong she was. The first thing I did when I got home was open my laptop. Sarah had always assumed I wasn't paying attention, but she was sloppy. She left trails. And now, I was going to follow them. Bank statements, emails, social media. She had no idea how much she had left open for me to find. Within minutes, I had everything I needed. The hotel bookings. She hadn't even used cash. The transactions were right there, staring me in the face. Her text logs. Not just with Tyler, but with a couple of her friends. Friends who knew and covered for her. Her recent purchases. Expensive clothes, jewelry, things she never wore at home. Things she bought for someone else. She had been living a double life right under my nose, spending our money on him, making me the fool. Not anymore. I copied everything. Every receipt, every screenshot, every message where she laughed at me with her friends. If she thought I was going to be the pathetic husband begging her to stay, she was about to have the shock of her life. Morning came, and with it, Sarah. I heard the front door unlock around 6 a.m. She was trying to be quiet, probably hoping to slip into bed like she had never left. Like she hadn't been with him just hours ago. I was waiting for her in the kitchen. She froze in the doorway when she saw me. Her hair was still damp from a quick shower, her face neutral, but I saw the flicker of unease in her eyes. "You're up early," she said, forcing a casual tone. I took a slow sip of my coffee. Didn't sleep much. She dropped her purse on the counter, stretching like she had just come back from a yoga class instead of a night of betrayal. Yeah, same. Long night. I let that sit for a second, watching her, letting her think I was about to let it go. Then I slid the printed screenshots across the counter. The color drained from her face. Her hand hesitated before reaching for them, flipping through the pages. Hotel receipts. Text messages. A printout of her messages to her friends, mocking me, joking about how easy I was to deceive. Her head snapped up. "Where did you get this?" I tilted my head. "Does it matter?" She inhaled sharply, but her reaction wasn't guilt. It wasn't even shame. It was anger. "You went through my stuff?" she hissed, slamming the papers down. "That's insane, Matt. You're acting like a total psycho." I laughed. Actually laughed. The audacity of her, standing here, trying to twist this around on me. "That's your angle?" I asked, shaking my head. "I catch you cheating multiple times, and your first reaction is to call me crazy?" She crossed her arms, eyes cold. "Well, yeah. What kind of man digs through his wife's phone like a paranoid freak?" I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "The kind of man whose wife has been screwing her coworker behind his back." She flinched, but quickly covered it with a scoff. "Oh, get over yourself. It's not like we were happy, anyway." There it was. I stared at her, that last shred of hope I didn't even know I had snapping in two. "Then why didn't you leave?" I asked, voice eerily calm. She smirked. Actually smirked. "Because you're convenient." The words punched me in the gut. I should have expected them, but hearing them out loud? That was different. She shrugged, like this was nothing. Like I was nothing. "You pay the bills, you do the boring stuff. I don't have to worry about anything. Tyler's fun, but let's be real, he's not husband material." I exhaled, slow and controlled. "So you were just going to keep using me? Playing house while sneaking off whenever you wanted?" She rolled her eyes. "Matt, don't be dramatic." Dramatic. She really thought I was just going to take this. That I'd sit here, listen to her belittle me, and keep playing the role of the clueless husband. I stood up, pushing my chair back with deliberate slowness. Sarah watched me carefully, her confidence flickering just a little. "I want a divorce." She blinked. Once. Twice. Then her face twisted. "Wait. What?" "You heard me," I said, grabbing my coffee and taking another sip. "I'm done. I'll have the papers ready by the end of the week." Now she was panicking. "Matt, come on, let's talk about this." I shook my head. "No, you talk. A lot. But I'm done listening." She stepped closer, her tone suddenly soft, fake sweetness dripping from her voice. "Baby, don't be rash. We can work through this." I laughed again, shaking my head. "You think I'm stupid? That I'm just going to forgive this?" Her jaw clenched. "So you're really going to throw everything away because of one mistake?" I raised an eyebrow, tapping the pile of evidence on the counter. "One mistake? Sarah, this was months of lying. You didn't just cheat, you made a joke out of me." She opened her mouth, but I was already walking past her. "I'll be staying with my brother until the paperwork is sorted. You can keep the house, for now. But when the divorce is final, I want you gone. Now the anger was back. You don't get to make that decision, she snapped. I paused in the doorway, glancing back. Oh, I already did. And with that, I left. This was far from over. But for the first time in months, I finally felt like I was in control. Walking out of that house should have felt like freedom, like the first real step toward cutting Sarah out of my life. Instead, as I drove to my brother's place, the weight of everything started pressing down on me. The betrayal, the disrespect, the sheer audacity of her thinking she could play me for a fool and still have me stick around. I gripped the wheel tighter, jaw clenched. Not anymore. By the time I pulled into my brother Ryan's driveway, I had already sent a message to my lawyer. This wasn't going to be one of those drawn-out, messy divorces where she drained me for everything I had. She had already taken enough from me, my trust, my peace, my dignity. I wasn't about to let her take anything else. Ryan opened the door, rubbing the sleep out of his eyes. Damn, Matt. It's like 6 in the morning. What's going on? I didn't even hesitate. Sarah's been cheating on me. I caught her. That woke him up fast. His expression shifted from groggy confusion to pure rage. You're kidding. I shook my head. Not even a little. Ryan stepped back, letting me inside. Tell me everything. I did. Every last disgusting detail. From the suspicious phone calls to the fake girls' nights, to the hotel receipts, and finally, the confrontation. By the time I finished, Ryan was pacing. That. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. That witch. I never liked her, man. She always had this fake charm, like she thought she was the smartest person in the room. I ran a hand through my hair. Yeah, well, I was dumb enough to fall for it. Ryan turned to me, his expression serious. So what now? You staying here for a while? Yeah, I nodded. I'm filing for divorce. Already contacted the lawyer. I want her out of my life. Ryan grinned, but it wasn't a happy grin. Good. But you know she's not just gonna roll over and accept this, right? I exhaled. I know. Sarah was selfish, entitled, and worst of all, vindictive. She had used me, and now that I was pulling the plug on her perfect little arrangement, she was going to fight. But I was ready. The first sign of Sarah's retaliation came the very next day. I had barely finished my second cup of coffee when my phone started blowing up with messages. Sarah, we need to talk. Sarah, you're making a huge mistake. Sarah, Matt, don't do this. You're acting insane. I ignored them. Then came the voicemails. At first, her tone was sweet. Apologetic. Fake. Matt, baby, can we just talk? I know you're upset, but we can work this out. I made a mistake, but that doesn't mean we should throw everything away. I love you. Please, just call me. I deleted it. Then came the anger. You're really gonna do this? Over one mistake? You think you're so righteous, don't you? Like you've never done anything wrong in your life. Deleted. And then, the threats. If you think you can just walk away and leave me with nothing, you're delusional. You owe me, Matt. You think a judge is just gonna let you kick me out? Good luck with that. I smirked at my phone, shaking my head. She really thought she had leverage over me. I forwarded the messages to my lawyer. A few hours later, Sarah showed up. I heard the loud knock at Ryan's door before I even saw her. Ryan glanced at me. That her? I sighed. Yeah, stay out of this. I opened the door, and there she was. Sarah, standing on the porch in her most pathetic attempt at looking innocent. Matt, she started, tilting her head in that fake sweet way she always did when she wanted to manipulate me. Can we just talk? I crossed my arms. We have nothing to talk about. She let out an exaggerated sigh, placing a hand on her hip. Come on, don't be like this. I know you're angry, but let's be adults. I laughed, shaking my head. Oh, now you want to be adults? Where was all this maturity when you were sneaking around behind my back? Her smile twitched, just for a second. Matt, listen. No, I cut her off. You listen. We're done. I've already filed for divorce. My lawyer has everything, including your lovely text messages where you and your friends mocked me. Her eyes flashed. You had no right to go through my stuff. I smirked. And you had no right to screw around with your coworker. Guess we're even. She huffed. I should have known you'd be petty about this. Petty? I raised an eyebrow. You used me, Sarah. You laughed about it with your friends. You spent our money on him. And you expect me to just roll over? Her lips curled into a sneer. You were never enough for me, Matt. That's the truth. You're boring, predictable, weak. Tyler. I took a step forward, voice low. Say his name one more time and see what happens. For the first time, I saw it. A flicker of fear in her eyes. Good. She crossed her arms, trying to act tough. Whatever. This divorce is gonna cost you, Matt. I'll make sure of it. I chuckled. You sure about that? Because while you were busy screwing around, I was busy protecting myself. You signed a prenup, remember? Her mouth fell open. It was almost satisfying to see the realization hit her. You? She breathed. You wouldn't. Already did, I said simply. You get nothing, Sarah. Not the house, not my money, nothing. Her face went red. You can't do this. I shrugged. I already did. She screamed. Actually screamed, stomping her foot like a spoiled child. It was pathetic. You're gonna regret this, Matt, she spat. You think you can just walk away and have everything go your way? I'll ruin you. I tilted my head. You already did. But now, it's your turn. Her breathing was heavy, fists clenched. But she knew. She had already lost. She turned on her heel and stormed off, muttering curses under her breath. I watched her go, exhaling slowly. This was far from over. But for the first time in years, I wasn't the one losing. Watching Sarah stomp away, her threats lingering in the air like the last desperate screams of a losing gambler, I felt something strange, relief. It wasn't victory, not yet. But for the first time in years, I wasn't the one being played. I turned back inside, shutting the door behind me. Ryan was sitting on the couch, arms crossed. That sounded ugly. I let out a slow breath. Yeah, but it's done. He scoffed. You think she's just gonna accept it? No, I admitted. But she doesn't have a choice. Sarah was stubborn, manipulative, and spiteful. She'd claw at anything to avoid losing. But this time, I was ahead of her. The next few days were chaos. Sarah did not take it well. She started calling mutual friends, spinning her own version of the story. Matt's gone crazy. Matt's throwing our marriage away over nothing. Matt's being vindictive. It was laughable. The same woman who had been mocking me behind my back now played the heartbroken wife to anyone who would listen. But here's the thing. People aren't stupid. Some of them believed her, sure. But most? They knew. It wasn't long before I started getting messages. Mike, mutual friend dude, I don't know what Sarah told you, but she's been messing around with Tyler for a while. I didn't want to get in the middle of it, but, yeah, man. Sorry. Emily, Sarah's old friend, I always knew she was trash. You deserve better. Even her family was turning on her. Her own sister, Lisa, texted me. She's spiraling, Matt. Mom's furious at her. If you need anything, let me know. I won't lie, it felt good. For the first time, Sarah wasn't controlling the narrative. She was losing. Then she tried to escalate. First, she tried showing up at my job. I was in my office when my assistant knocked, looking uneasy. Matt, your wife is here. I sighed. Ex-wife. She says it's urgent. Of course she did. I stepped outside, and there she was, Sarah, standing in the lobby, arms crossed, fake tears in her eyes. Matt, she started, voice soft, can we talk? I kept my expression blank. There's nothing to talk about. She blinked, looking around, like she expected me to take this somewhere private. Come on, don't do this here. Just 5 minutes. I shook my head. Not happening. You don't get to screw me over for months and then act like I owe you a conversation. She dropped the act in an instant. Her face hardened. You're really gonna throw everything away? You threw it away, I shot back. Her nostrils flared. I'll fight you in court. I smirked. Good luck. You signed a prenup, remember? That shut her up. For a moment, she just stared. Then, without another word, she turned and stormed out. Then came her last, desperate move. 2 days later, I got a call from my lawyer. She's contesting the divorce, he said, trying to claim you were emotionally abusive. I almost laughed. Are you serious? She's grasping at straws, he assured me. But we'll shut it down fast. She has no proof. I shook my head. Typical Sarah. When all else failed, she played the victim. But this time, it wasn't working. The court date came fast. She sat across from me, looking bitter, wearing the same fake innocence she used to manipulate me for years. Her lawyer tried everything, claiming she was forced to sign the prenup, that she had no financial independence, that she was a victim. It was pathetic. My lawyer shredded every argument. By the end, the judge barely even looked at her before making the ruling. The divorce was final. She got nothing. When the gavel hit, I felt it. True, undeniable freedom. Sarah, on the other hand, she sat there, stunned, like she couldn't believe it. For once, she lost. And it was beautiful. Walking out of that courtroom, I took the deepest breath of my life. Ryan was waiting outside, grinning. So, how bad was it? I smirked. She got exactly what she deserved. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. Damn right. We walked to the car, and for the first time in a long time, I felt light. No more lies. No more manipulation. No more Sarah. Just me, my future, and a life she would never touch again. This was only the beginning.